Hey coders, we're going to do lesson 20 now, and we're going to talk about the game design process. Um, this lesson will talk about how to design games and before you actually start on your own. We're going to talk about the project guide, which I'm still going to figure out if I want you guys to do it or not. I probably will, just to get you guys thinking about the sprites, the variables, and functions that you will need. Um, we're going to talk about a game and play the game and see how we like it. And eventually you're going to try to basically modify one of the games. Let's go and get started. All right, so we have a bunch of levels that we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so defend your cake. Let's go ahead and hit run and see how this game goes. So it looks like it uses the arrow keys, and I can kind of basically push the bugs from maybe into the water or something, and then defend my cake. Now let's see what happens if I don't defend my cake, and let's see what happens. So it looks like my cake, doesn't really. Oh, it gets a negative score or something. If for each one that hits it, I get like -10, and each one I kill, I get +1. So basically, the game kind of goes on indefinitely. Let's see if I die or something. If eventually my cake dies, doesn't seem like it can die or anything. I keep getting negative scores here. Okay, all right. So how many sprites are there in this game? It looks like one, two, three, at least three sprites. Um, what variables I need to make this game? So there's probably a variable for score, a variable for each sprite. So maybe four sprites or four variables. If you were to split this code of this game into functions, what do you think it would be? Um, well, probably like maybe a ladybug reset code. So reset the ladybugs. It seems like there's two ladybugs at any given time. There's probably like a draw background. Um, and I don't know what else could there be. That's all I can think of for now. There's probably some type of movement to update the movement for inside the draw loop to update the character's movement. Okay. All right. And what else? What are the major pieces of behavior that you need to create for your code? So behaviors. My character can go up, down, left, right. The bugs seem to respawn and go left to right. That's obviously like velocity X. Um, there's collisions. So basically, I can push bugs kind of indefinitely here. Um, and if the bugs collide with the water or something, it dies and respawns. If the bug hits the cake, I get negative damage here. So those are some of the, I think, the features of this game. Let's go and get started with bubble number 3. All right, so before you move on, you need to look at the project guide for this project. Wait for instructions from your teacher as well. So obviously I don't have that right now, but we'll just go ahead and continue. Okay, so using multi-frame animation. So in the Sample Defender game, the sprites themselves were animated. Before getting started programming this game, take a minute to get familiar with the new way of animating sprites. So the program already includes several sprites, but they don't yet have any animations. Go to the animation tab and check out the multi-frame animation already added to your project. Choose one of each of your characters. Remember, you can use set animation to give the animation you created in animation tab. So we have an alien and a ladybug sprites, but no animation has been set yet. Let's go to the animation tab, and you can see that this alien has 2 frames, and that's why it looks like it's walking, right? Because it has this frame where its legs are apart, and this frame when the legs are together. And if you play them kind of side by side over and over again, it looks like they're walking. You can even control the walk speed if you want to slow it down, right? So you can actually change the way it looks, make it look very fast, Make it look a little bit slower, something like that. Okay. Now the ladybug, it's very similar too. There's two animations. One where the head is probably scrunched in a little bit, and one where the head is scrunched out. So basically, with the head scrunching in and out like this, it would look like animation like that. Again, you can speed it up and down. So let's go ahead and set the animation. So here's the name of it. Hopefully the name will pop up inside our code. Let's see if I can enlarge this for you guys. All right, so the instructions say go ahead and set the animations. That's pretty easy. We're just going to go to each line of code right after the alien is created. We're going to say alien.setAnimation, put a left parentheses, and the quotes already pop up. So we're going to choose alien walk. Make sure you put a semicolon. Ladybug, we're going to do the same thing. Ladybug.setAnimation, left parentheses, ladybug1. Oops, I didn't click it. Ladybug1, and then put a right parentheses and a semicolon. Okay, so now we have set the animation, and now we have a background that's white and a draw sprite that draws, and they're just, here. Okay, so we have a two sprites. Okay, and remember, our goal is to basically create the game that we just saw. So let's go bubble number 5. All right, so time to start learning how to control these multi-frame animations. Your sprite should animate, but they're moving really quickly. Head back to the animation tab. On each animation, you should see a slider. Use the slider to slow down your animations so they look more realistic. So let's go ahead and make it more realistic looking. I say that's a little bit too slow because our guy that looks pretty good. Now ladybugs don't move this quickly. They're much slower. So maybe something like that. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Whatever you feel like. There's no right or wrong answer for these. And that's it. So let's go bubble number 6. Oh, wait. Let's go back to bubble number 5 and look at our speed. We kind of saw it already, but if we hit run now, they look a little bit more realistic. Okay. Let's go bubble number 6. All right, in bubble number 6, your sprites will look a lot more realistic as they actually turn around when they're moving. You can switch back and forth between MultiFrame Animation when the user presses different keys. So read the code below and run the program. Make sure you know how the sprite responds to the arrow keys. In the Animation tab, create a copy of the alien animated by clicking the Follow button. Okay, the following button. This is how we duplicate. Okay, then you can use the Flip tool to make it flip around this way. Rename the new animation. Use your new animation to an old animation so that the alien faces the correct direction when moving. What do you think you'll need to set the sprite's animation in your code? Okay, so we have a hero now. It sets the animation to the alien pink animation. Okay, and let's see what else it does. There's a function draw, which is our draw loop that keeps drawing and drawing and drawing. It accepts user input. So this is kind of a function where it kind of accepts all the user input. So in this case, if the key is left, the hero will go to the left. If the key down is right, it will go to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit run. So now if we hit left, the character will go left. If we hit right, the character will go right. But like the instructions say, our character doesn't actually flip. So we're going to need to do that. Let's go and go to our animation tab. We're going to click this button right here to duplicate. Okay. And let's go ahead and change the name to 2. Okay. So 1 goes this way, 2 goes this way. But then now we need to actually change it so that it actually does what we want. So we're going to go to alien 1 here. Okay. So I have walk number 2. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to use this button right here that flips it. Right. And then I'm going to go over here and flip this spot. Otherwise, he's going to keep looking like this. He's going to keep looking left and look right. I got to flip both of them. So now he looks like he's walking to the left. Okay. So I'm going to slow this down, something more realistic looking. Okay, maybe increase that a little bit. Okay. So now let's go back to our code. Now that we created 2 different ones. Okay. So initially, right, when the game starts, the alien's going to look toward the right. But if he looks left, we're going to change the animation. So inside here, under user input, when the left key is being pressed down, we want to move the sprite to the left, and we want to change the sprite. So we're going to do set animation, and we're going to do the one that says number 2. That's the one that walks to the left. And we'll do the same thing. So I'm going to just copy and paste this when he moves right, except we're going to change it back to walk number 1. So if you hit the right key, he's going to do the number 1 animation. If he hits the left key, he's going to do number 2 animation. And he's also going to move to the left and move to the right. Let's go ahead and run. So if I hit right, he keeps going right. But if I hit left now, it'll actually look like he's moving left. Okay? And that's all. Okay, again, let's go ahead and look at the code. So the draw function just draws a white background. It takes the user input, which is a really cool function, right? So basically all the user input that he can put in the game, we should put it in this function. Okay, and then we're just going to draw the sprites. So this is a really good way to organize our code. Let's go ahead and go number 7. All right, you should have already reviewed the planning guide of this project. A lot of work to turn in this project guide into a working game has already been started. Based on the project guide, you're going to do the rest of this work. So let's get started. You wanted something better animation for each of your sprites. In the animation tab or animations are animations for each of your sprites. Go look at what they are. So let's go and do that first. So we have an alien that walks to the right. We have a cake. And we have a ladybug. Okay. So let's go back to our project. In your code, given each sprite its appropriate animation, use one provided for now, but later you'll be able to go and change them. All right. So we're going to go to cake, and we're going to go ahead and set animation. And we're going to go ahead and type in cake and semicolon. The player is going to be dot set animation again. And we're going to choose the animation walk right. Let me go ahead and make this bigger for you guys. And we're going to go to the enemy. The enemy is basically going to be the ladybug. And we're going to use the ladybugs as our enemies. And we're probably going to do the same thing for the second ladybug. So we're going to change the 1 to a 2. I'm just copy and paste it, makes our life a lot faster. And that's it. That's kind of setting the animations for our game. Let's go ahead and run. So now we have, an alien and a cake and ladybug that appears on the upper left. Okay. Let's go bubble number 8. So now we're going to talk about how to move the enemies. To begin, you need to get your enemy sprites to a random position and moving across the screen. To do this, we're going to have to, at the top of our program, create the enemy sprites, which we kind of already did here in lines 10 through 14, right? But we're going to write code that will move it to the correct position and give it a correct velocity. So use sprite.x to set the x position to 0. Okay, so basically we're saying that the x position is all going to be along this line. Okay, so we're going to go enemy1 dot x is equal to 0. So when the game starts, the enemy1 is going to start somewhere on this line. And we're going to copy this and do that for number 2 as well. Except we're going to do enemy number 2. Okay, so this is going to kind of set our ladybugs on the 0 axis here. Set the y position to be some random number between 150 and 250. So we're going to do the same code, except we're going to do it for y now. Enemy1.y, and we're going to assign it. All right, remember that equal sign is assignment. A random number between 150 being the minimum and 250 being the maximum. And this code, luckily, repeats. So we don't have to do it twice. We're going to Control C, go here, Control V to copy it, change 1 to 2. So now we have 2 ladybugs in random locations. Okay. And now we're going to set the velocity to 2. So 2 pixels to the right. So we're just going to go here, enemy1.velocity x equals 2. Okay. And we're going to Control copy that. And let's go ahead and paste it up here. You can kind of see the code in its entirety. And now we're going to change it to enemy 2. So now our ladybugs are randomly pushing, and not randomly going to the right. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. I think we finished all of that. Let's go bubble number 9. Okay. All right, in bubble number 9, touching the cake. If the enemy gets all the way across the cake, you should place it back at the left of the screen and decrease the score. So let's go ahead and write code for our enemies. Inside the enemy touches cake function, you'll need to write code that checks when a ladybug is touching the cake, reset its position, and change the score. So use an if and is touching to detect if the enemy has touched the cake. Inside your ifs block, place code that sets the enemy's X position back to 0, a random number, a Y position between 150 and 250, and use a counter pattern to decrease the score by 2. Okay, we can obviously reuse our code. So let's go ahead and look at our code again and see kind of a big picture here. So our score starts at 0. We have a cake sprite. We have a player sprite. We have an enemy 1 and an enemy 2. We have something that draws the game background. We have a enemy touches cake detection. And then we have a move player. We have a displace enemies. And we have an enemy touches water. And then we have a show score. And then we have a draw sprite. So I think in this particular bubble, our job is to figure out how to change enemy touches cake. So under enemy touches cake, there is 0 code. And our job is to define what that is. So enemy touches cake. Just like the instructions say, it's going to be an if statement. If our player is touching the not the player, sorry. If the enemy 1 is touching the cake, right? I think actually I don't even need parentheses, just put regular cake. Do something. Well, what do I want to do? So I want to, let's see what the instructions say. If the enemy touches the cake, reset the X position back to 0. So basically, I'm doing this code all over again. I'm resetting it. Change the Y position to 250. So I already have this code. I'm just going to copy right here, right? Which is in line 12 and 13, and paste it inside here. So if the enemy touches the cake, do what I did at the beginning of the game. Set the X position to 0, which means it's somewhere over here, and a random number between 150 and 250, which is right here, and decrease the score. So how do I decrease the score? Well, that's going to use the update pattern, which means it's going to say score is going to be assigned a value of the previous score minus 2. So now if we hit run, the ladybugs will touch the cake and my score will go down by 2. Now you notice only one of the ladybugs is respawning because I only have one if statement for enemy number 1, but I haven't done it for enemy number 2. So that's pretty easy. All I do is copy this, paste it, and now do it for number 2. So basically I just copied and pasted this and do the same thing with enemy number 2. And now what you'll see is basically 2 ladybugs that touch the cake and decrease my score by negative 2 each time. Okay, so it's going to be negative 12, negative 16. It's going to reset it. Okay, so we kind of get our game started now. We kind of got, the enemies doing what they're supposed to be doing. So let's go ahead and go on to our next bubble. Okay. All right, so bubble number 10, your enemy sprite should now be racing when it gets to the cake. Now you want to do the other ladybug to reset as well. So we kind of already did this. We're just going to control, copy it, change the enemy 1 to enemy 2, and we already kind of did this. So we kind of finished this bubble already. Let's go ahead and go to bubble number 11. Okay. All right, so in bubble number 11, your program now includes code in 2 places to set the enemy to the left side of the screen at a random Y location. You can create functions to reset each of your 2 enemies to remove repetition from your code. This will make your program easier to read. So allow you to change it more easily and allow you to quickly reset the sprite other points in your program if you need to. So do this. At the bottom of your program, create two functions, setEnemy1 and setEnemy2. Inside each of these functions, place a code that sets the enemies on the left side of the screen and gives them random Y positions. Wherever the code for enemy 1 and 1 appears in your program, replace them with a call to the function just created. So let's go ahead and look at our code. Okay, so instead of doing this every time, we're going to create code that sets enemy positions. So they want us to create two new functions. Okay, so function, and they want us to create one called setEnemy1, I believe. Let's see if I got that correct. Let's go look at the instructions. Yep, setEnemy1 and setEnemy2. So how do you write a function? You write the keyword function, you write the name of the function, you write the parameters, which in this case there's no parameters or arguments, and now we put it in parentheses. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, we want to do this. We want to take the enemy 1 and reset its X location and reset its Y location. So we're going to do it like this. Okay, and that's it. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to control copy for enemy 2. So I'm just going to change these numbers here. And now we have a setEnemy1 and a setEnemy2. And basically the code just resets the location back to the beginning. So now we can kind of go back and clean up our code a little bit. So this right here is just what? Our way of saying setEnemy1 back. Okay, and this code right here can be replaced with setEnemy2 because we already created this function for us. And if I look at my code, you can see this code right here also was repeated, right? So this right here is called setEnemy2, right? Make sure I have my parentheses here. Okay. And make sure I put my parentheses. Remember, if you call a function, you need to make sure you put the empty parameters there. Okay. And let's see, where else? And right here. So basically this code right here is the same as setEnemy1. So we're going to write the function called setEnemy1. And now our code looks a lot cleaner, right? Now basically it's easier to read. So we created a sprite, we assigned it Ladybug, we resetted the enemy, and we gave it a velocity. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and continue. And let's run our program and see if we didn't break our program, right? So basically all we did was really do the same thing except make our code look a lot more cleaner. Now you'll see later on if you want to change these numbers, we only have to change it in one place instead of changing it in multiple places. Okay, let's go to bubble number 12. All right, so now that our enemies are moving correctly, it's time to write code for our player. For now, you just need to get your character moving left and right and changing its animation. So for this level, you're writing code inside the move player function. If the block along the key down is going to the right, so use the if block along with the key down to detect when the arrow is being pressed. If it's being pressed to the right, just use the counter pattern and move the character to the right. Use another if command if the player's arrow is to the left, you'll move to the character to the left. Let's go ahead and test our character. So let's go ahead and look at our code right here. So this is all the code that we saw before. And now the enemy touch cake, we already took care of that. Now we need to move player. So we go to our move player section. We have no code. So we're going to go in here and go ahead and update it. So we're going to do an if statement, right? If key down inside there, the player hits right, I'm going to make the character move to the right. So how do I make my player move to the right? I think the player is called player, and it's going to be .x. I'm going to use the counter pattern, so .x again. And if to the right means I'm going to add a number, I think it said 3 pixels. But if key down is left, I want to make the player .x go to the left by subtracting 3. Okay, so it's just a simple if statement. Okay, so now our player can go to the left and go to the right. Okay, let's go ahead and hit reset. And I think that's it. I think that's all they wanted us to do. Let's go ahead and go to 13. Okay, now moving up and down, if your player wants to move up and down, for this to happen, write code inside the move down. If the player hits key down, move the sprite up. If the player hits up, move the character up. If the character goes down, move it down. So let's go ahead and change our code again. Let's go down to our function right here that we have this. So the code basically repeats itself. We don't have to actually rewrite all this code. We're just going to copy and paste it and change the numbers and the variables and the properties. So I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, and Control V. But instead of left now, I'm going to do up. And instead of left, I'm going to do down. Okay, so what happens when the key is being hit up? Well, I'm not going to change the X position. I'm going to change the Y position. And I'm going to update the Y position, meaning that player.y is equal to player.y minus 3. Now, is minus 3 correct? If I'm going up, is it going to be subtraction? And the answer is yes. Look at the values. As I'm moving my arrow up, the numbers are getting smaller. So subtract 3 actually works. Now for down, I'm not going to use X. I'm going to use Y. And instead of subtracting, I'm going to use plus. So let's go ahead and run our program and see if it works. If my character can move up and down as I wanted. Okay. Look, guys, we're almost done. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Okay. In 14, change player animation. So right now, our player always facing the same direction. You can make things look a lot better and more realistic if we swap and make the characters turn around. So we're basically going to make the character kind of move left when they move left, move right when they move right. And it's kind of like the same thing we did in bubble number, I think number 4, okay, or number 5 or something. Let's go ahead and fix this. So we have an alien walk right. We're going to duplicate it. And we're not going to make it, we're going to change the name to walk left, right? So instead of alien walk right, we got alien walk left. And we're going to now rotate each frame. So we have this frame right here. I'm going to use the flip button to flip it to make it look left. And we're going to hit this button right here to make it flip to the left. And let's go ahead and go to our code. Okay, so in our code, when the player starts the game, the player is going to look to the right. But if the player touches the keyboard, besides just going to the right, we're going to put a curly brace and a curly brace here because we're going to do more than one thing. Okay, when you do more than one thing inside an if statement, you need to put it inside a block, right? And how do we make blocks? We use curly braces. So besides moving the player to the right, we're going to tell the player to set animation to walk to the right. Okay. If the player hits left, we're going to do 2 things. And how do we do 2 things? We have to put it in a block. So how do we make a block? We're going to use curly braces. Okay. So inside the block, we're going to move the character to the left, and we're going to what? Set the animation to what? To alien walk left. Okay, and make sure you put your semicolons. Okay, so beyond just moving the character to the right, we're going to make it look to the right. And beyond moving the character to the left, we're going to make it look left. Hit run. And now our character looks like it's moving left and right. Okay, all right, almost done. Let's go and go to bubble number 15. In bubble number 15, it's time to write the code for some more sprite interactions. Your player should displace the enemy sprites. So we have a function called displace enemies if you looked at our code. Write code that makes the player displace both enemies. So let's go ahead and go to our code. We have a function way down here called displace enemies. And if you look at displace, right, it's called right here. So every single time the draw loop happens, is going to check how things get displaced. So let's go ahead and put in some displace enemies. So we want our player to displace the enemy. So we have enemy 1, and because there's 2 of them, player should also displace enemy 2. Okay, and let's go ahead and run our program and see now if that's what happens. Okay, and let's see if I can push the ladybugs up. Okay, so it looks like now I can push the ladybugs off the screen. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and go back to our code. And bubble number 16. In bubble number 16, touching the water. The last part of our game is that if the sprites hit the water, we're going to reset the sprites and probably increase our score. Lucky you should already written function to reset each sprite, so it's an easy way to use it now. So basically we already created the functions to kind of displace or reset the sprites, right? And now we're just going to use it again and copy instead of copying and pasting. Okay, so we have a function called enemy touches water. What happens when the enemy touches the water? We're going to use an if statement, check if the enemy touches the water, and that's if the y value is below 140, make the enemy reset, and then add 1 to our score. That tells me if the enemy is touching the top water. If the enemy touches the bottom water, the y value is going to be above 260. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to reset it, the enemy 1, back to the beginning, and we're going to add 1 to our score. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay. I want to go down to enemy touches water, and let's get started. So we're going to have 2 if statements. If enemy 1 is our enemy 1 dot y, right, we're talking about the y value here, is less than 140, we're going to do several things. We're going to reset the enemy. So that's enemy 1 dot, actually we won't have to even write that. We just do set enemy 1. Because we have a function that we already created for it, kind of reset the enemy. We're going to increase our score by 1. So score is equal to score plus 1. Set enemy 1 is going to reset it to a random location. And let's see if it works. So now I should be able to push the ladybugs, or at least one of them, off the screen. And then they should respawn back. Okay, so I can keep pushing the same ladybug up. Okay, now obviously we got to do it for 2 ladybugs, but this is how it's going to work. Okay, now what's going to happen though if I push it down? Nothing. I didn't write code to do what happens when it gets pushed down. Just go ahead and take care of that. So I'm basically going to copy and paste this code, except instead of being less than 140, I'm going to do greater than, I think the number is 260. Let's go ahead and double check our instructions. Yep, if the y value is greater than 260, we're going to reset the enemy and we're going to add 1 to the score. So now, that one ladybug that I can reset will reset if I push it down or up, right? Okay, and I can keep killing the ladybug, going down or up. Okay, now we just got to repeat this code for enemy number 2. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to change it to enemy number 2. And I'm going to reset enemy 2. I'm going to check enemy 2. And I'm going to reset enemy 2. And now I should be able to do it to both ladybugs. So I can push one up, I can push one down, I can push one down, I can push one down, I can push one down. Ah! And now we have a game. Okay. Okay, let's go to bubble number 17 and let's see what they want. I think they're going to tell us to make some improvements. That's my guess. So you walk through someone else's plan on how to create a game. Now it's time to make your own. What additional features or challenges do you want to create? Select one of the challenges below to add to your game and come up with your own challenging one. So let's go ahead and let's do all of these. Now I don't want you guys to do all of them. I want you guys to choose one, but I'm going to make an example of how you can do each of these so that you can use it in your actual game. Okay? Change the visuals of the game so that your player, enemy, or cake look different. That's pretty easy. I'm actually not going to even do that one. That doesn't require any coding. That's just you guys making your things look cooler. That's up to you. Okay? End the game when the enemy gets to the cake and print the score. So basically, when the enemy touches the cake, instead of just subtracting the score, we're going to end the game. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this. This is kind of fun. End the game. Do we have any functions that end the game? Let me go ahead and close this. We have some functions here. We have sprites. We have controls. And we have variables. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of take on one of these challenges. So basically, I'm going to do a show score. Okay. And show score looks like this. It will show the score. It'll write it in text. It'll show where to write it and to show what the score it is. Let's go ahead and create a function called endgame. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and do an endgame function. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the challenging one because they say like the challenging one is if we make all three enemies touch the cake. So I'm going to actually go ahead and create a function called endgame. And I'm going to actually just write it right here so we kind of see all the code in one place. So I'm going to create a function called endgame. And basically all it does is check for the end of the game. And I'm going to do, in order to do this, I need to create a new variable that kind of keeps track of how many lives. So let's go ahead and make some variables. I'm going to call a variable called lives. And the lives is equal to 3 when the game starts. So basically, the game is going to end when the lives go down to 0. So let's go ahead and go down here in my function. If lives equals 0, basically end the game. So I'm going to write code in here that tells me what the code will look like when the game ends. Okay, so let's worry about this a little bit later. Let's go ahead and figure out where I have to change my code so that the lives go down. So what happens when the enemy touches the cake? When the enemy touches the cake, I want my lives to go down by -1. So let's go ahead and go to, let's see, enemy touches water. Nope, let's go to enemy touches cake. So right here, when the enemy touches the cake, besides, lowering my score, I want to actually decrease my lives. So lives is going to equal to lives -1. And I'm going to go here. Lives is equal to lives -1. Okay. So this is how I'm going to make my lives go down. So now, this function that I wrote for ending the game will actually work because my lives are going to go down every single time the cake reaches 0. And once it reaches 0, let's just go ahead and make a text box. Let's just go text game over. And let's go ahead and put it smack in the middle of the screen. So let's go 200, 200. And we can always adjust these numbers later. But 200, 200 is kind of like right in the middle of the game. Let's go ahead and make the size of it really big. So let's go text.size. And let's make it like, I don't know, 48, something huge. Let's go ahead and run. So if I get out of the way and let the ladybugs touch the cake, my lies should go to 0, and then it should say game over. But it does not. So what is going on? Let's see. Game over, 200 by 200. So it looks like there's a bug in my code, and let's go ahead and trace this bug. So here's a good opportunity for us to kind of go here and use this right here and type in the variable I just created called lives and hit the plus button. You can see that the lives is going down, but it seems like it never runs this code. So I think what's happening is that I use an equals when I should be using a less than. I think what's happening is that the cake up right there, you saw it game over, okay, is only showing up one time. I'm going to use a less than sign instead, and now I think it's going to continue to say game over. So you can see my lives going down to 1, and now it's like game over, right? So let's go ahead and move game over to like, I don't know, 100 or something. Let's see if that kind of makes our game over look better. Right, game over. Let's go ahead and make it a different color. Let's go and go text color. Can I do color? Text color. Fill. All right, yeah, let's do fill. Let's go ahead and fill it red. Okay. And I think there's a way to make the game end. It's to turn the frame rate. I think world.framerate. Let's make it 0. I think if we do this, the game will actually freeze. And let's go ahead and run and see if this actually ends the game. So the frame rate is how many times in the draw loop is being run per second. And if the frame rate is 0, it should end the game, but it does not. World frame rate. Okay. All right, let's go and check out and see what's going on with world frame rate. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, hit the plus sign, and see if the world frame rate is about 30 frames a second. And let's see what happens when our lives go down to 0 and see if this changes to 0. It does not. So world frame rate does not seem like it can be set to 0 inside the aim game function. Let's go ahead and see why that is. So I think it's just something that it gets set at the beginning of the game, and I can't change it anymore once it is created. So I need to figure out a more better way to end the game. So I can kind of cover this more in class, how to end the game. For now, let's just leave it like this. It just says game over in the middle of the screen. I think that's good enough. Let's actually give a player an indication that the lives are going to go down. So I'm going to kind of teach you guys how to kind of give your character kind of a visual way of looking at the lives. So instead of having a cake that has, one fire, let's go ahead and change it to duplicate 2 different ones. So I'm going to duplicate cake 3 times. And I'm going to call this cake. Let's call it cake 2, meaning there's 2 fires left. Let's change this one to cake 1, meaning there's 1 fire left. And let's go cake 0. Okay. So now we have these other ones. And as you would suspect, I'm going to kind of use my eraser here and use my eraser tool and erase the fire off one of them. Okay, so now cake number 2 only has 2 fires, and cake number 3, let's go and get rid of another one. So I'm going to get rid of 2 of these. Okay. And in cake 0, I'm just going to kind of erase all the fire here. And now our job is to animate it. So let's go ahead and go over here. And let's kind of use an update function. So every single time the enemy touches the cake, we're going to make a new function called update candles. Okay. And all update candle does is check if the number of candles are in the game. So I'm going to kind of create it right here so you guys can see it kind of close. We're going to have a function called update candles. So how does this function work? If lives is equal to 2, then we're going to set the animation of the cake. Cake, I think it's cake if I remember correctly. Yep. Cake.set animation is going to be cake 2. I'm going to copy and paste this. If the number of lives is equal to 1, I'm going to do cake 1. And if the number of lives is 0, or let's say even less than 1, the game is over, and we're going to do cake number 0. So this kind of catches if it kind of goes down by 2 and skips 0 and goes to -1. This will guarantee that the code will always set the animation. And now I gotta make sure I put my semicolons here, semicolon and semicolon. Let's go ahead and run now. So now if the ladybug touches the lives, it's going to lower the number of lives here, and then eventually the candles will blow out and the game will say game over. So that's kind of a cool way to kind of give visual appearance to your player to know that the game is over. Okay, let's see what else we can do. Randomize the speed of the enemies. That should be a quick one. Okay, so let's see, where do we set the speed of our enemy? Okay, we kind of set it right here, right? So in our code though, every time we displace we set our enemy, we should be able to change it. So let's go ahead and actually do it inside the set enemy 1 and set enemy 2. So basically every time either the ladybug touches the cake or the ladybug gets pushed into the water, we're going to give it a new velocity. So let's go ahead and do it in here. So enemy 1 dot velocity x, and let's give it a random number. And I think our original number was 2. So let's go and give it a score of 1 to, let's go 5. Maybe that, we'll start with some small number here. And we're going to do the same thing with enemy 2. So I'm going to kind of copy and paste this, but I'm going to call it 2. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit reset, and let's see what happens. So the enemies start out with the same speed, but I push it over now, and now I got ones that go slower, ones that go faster. Oop, that one kind of hit my, oh, there's that one. Push this one over. Push this one over. I can push this one. Ooh, that one's fast. Ooh, that's fun. Ah! Okay, all right, that makes the game a little more fun here, a little more challenging. Okay, kind of like, oh, kind of time. Wait, how come the game wasn't over yet? Game over. Okay, so let's go look at our game over. Did I make it 0? Game over. So yeah, so if the lives is less than 1, that's not make it less than 0. If the lives is less than 1, the game is over. So let's go ahead and try our game again. So now if the ladybugs touch my candles and I reach 0, it should say game over. Okay, and it's kind of up, and the game is over. Okay, very fun. All right, let's go ahead and go and see what other ones they want us to try. Create a new background that shows up when players reach a higher score. So basically, if the score gets to a certain level, we're going to change the background. Okay, let's do that. So let's go ahead and look at our background. We have this game background function here that just draws the background. And I think if you look at the code, it kind of did everything for us. So if the score is like a regular score, we'll give it a, the same background. But if it's different, we can change the color. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, let's go ahead and put all of this code inside an if statement. So let's go if, and I'm going to put everything in here inside a curly brace. So I'm going to kind of push it down here, make another curly brace over here, and kind of put a tab on all of this. So all of this happens when, let's say the score is, the score is less than, let's say, 10. So basically this code happens when the score is less than 10, it's going to have the same background. But if the score is not less than 10, we're doing else, we're going to draw a different background. So I'm just going to kind of copy and paste all this code and make it right here. But instead, I'm going to change the colors, make it look a little bit more vibrant. So if I'm not mistaken, this blue right here is 255. So let's go ahead and make it green instead. So I'm going to switch the numbers to 255 and make it bright green when I reach a score that's higher than 10. So let's do my best to get a score that's higher than 10. Okay. All right. Kind of push this one up here. Push this one down. Push this one down. And I should get a nice 10 green color now. And voila. And now our screen is green color when our score is high. Kind of shows that we're doing well here. Okay. Oh no, it's too much. No, game over. And the score is now negative and the game is over. Okay. All right, very fun. All right, and we kind of did everything now, except for the change the way the enemies look. So I'm not going to be doing that. You guys can do that if you guys like. That ends our video. I will see you guys on Thursday. I'll basically give you guys 2 days to do this one. So you guys will work on it tomorrow and part on the day when I come back. Okay. All right. Be good, guys.